Here is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode 119. This podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Turrbal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They were the first music makers on this land. Hello, welcome to the Crescendo Music Education Podcast. I am Debbie O'Shea and I am excited to be starting this episode. You're going to love it. If you do not know Amy Revell, then you're in for a treat because she is really inspirational yet practical. Now, during this episode, I talk about how I first came across Amy and then approached her to be on the podcast. But basically, Amy is a bit of an expert at helping people to declutter and organise their lives. Now, I admit I have a little bit of a clutter issue. I am working on it. I've been working on it for quite some time. And Amy's podcasts really helped me. They really did. I also bought the Audible version of her book. That also helped. I won't tell you any more about how I engaged with her work in the first place because it comes across a little bit in this podcast. We had such a good chat. So there's 2 episodes. This is the first episode of my chat with the lovely Amy, and just make sure that you connect with her on all of the things, on Facebook and all of the things. Enjoy part 1. And welcome to the Crescendo Music Education Podcast to Amy Revell. Hello, Amy.
Hey, Debbie, how are you?
I'm fabulous, and I'm just so excited to meet you. I'm a bit of a fangirl. I've been binging your podcasts.
That's a bit nice. You might be sick of my voice by now, so hopefully other people are ready to experience all the newness of decluttering.
Well, actually, it's funny you should say that because I really enjoy listening to your voice.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, apart from the fact it's a nice voice, but whether too, because I was listening to Decluttering podcasts before I found you, and they were all American.
And a lot of people say that. They're like, oh, it's great to hear an Aussie voice, an Aussie take on something that we're passionate about and actually have it kind of homegrown. But the Americans love the Australian accent too, which is always lovely.
Yes, so there you go. Win-win. Yeah. But I really love listening to your voice. And I came across you because I'm on my own decluttering journey, but I'll come back to that. I want to start by reading just a really brief bio for those people who haven't come across you yet. All right.
That's good.
Amy Revell is an experienced declutter coach and professional organiser, as well as an author and industry leader. Sharing as an expert on TV, radio, print media, podcasts and live events, she's available for expert comment or media appearances or appearances on Crescendo Music Education Podcast. Yeah. As founder of The Art of Decluttering, she lives her passion for organising and decluttering every day. Her business provides decluttering and organisation services for NDIS clients and others who are busy, overwhelmed and sick of dealing with clutter in their homes. The Art of Decluttering is Australia's top decluttering podcast with well over 4 million downloads. So if you have not come across Amy before, listeners, you're going to hear from her now, and I know you're going to go scurrying and following her podcast because it's gold.
Thank you. Yeah, it's lots of fun being able to connect with people all over the world and share the thing you're passionate about, which I know is something you love as well, Debbie.
And everyone who's listening, super passionate about music education. And I know that some people might be going, hold on, Debbie, you're going off on a tangent. Those of you who know me well know that's sort of what I do. Look, something shiny. But it actually isn't a tangent. I think this is something that we as teachers, I think we struggle with it. I think we struggle with our electronic files and our paper files and our resources that we
The
need.
resources, don't they breed?
Oh, they so do. And like, who doesn't have a love affair with the laminator? And,
Yeah.
anyway, let's get back to that. Let's go back to your bio. Is there anything that you want to add to that summary of your work? And I also realized I didn't say anything about you personally. So are you in, I want to say Melbourne?
Yeah, I'm in Melbourne.
Okay.
So I've got 16 and 18-year-old boys, and I've been married to my husband for 22 years. I'm neurodiverse, so I've got ADHD, and a few of my family members do as well. So I think one of the things that I want to say from the outset, like music teachers and those of you listening, is my way of doing decluttering is not picture perfect. So it's not about having the best looking, it's about functionality, it's about creativity, it's about finding how you work in a space. So if you're kind of scared, you're like, oh, she's going to tell me to get rid of everything and then make it all beautiful. Actually, I think you'll be surprised at the relative correlation between how you teach music and how you run your business and how you live your life to how to live decluttered and organized. So just don't tune out. Don't be too scared.
Oh, that sounds fabulous, because it is a little scary. When
Yeah,
you get onto Pinterest and you're thinking, I just can't cope with my pantry, or I just can't cope with my office. And you start Googling and you just go, I just can't. I
yeah.
just can't. And I think that puts a lot of people off straight away. It's too overwhelming.
Totally. Yeah. And the expectation is so unrealistic that it's no wonder that you can't get there. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, how do we make things so that it's reasonable and easy and simple and maintainable? Because that's how we succeed, rather than setting unrealistic expectations and wanting it to be something somebody else might like, but doesn't work for the way that we live and work.
Mm-hmm. And it's true in every aspect of life, isn't it?
Totally. Yep.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So I'd like to ask you about gratitude.
Mm.
For what are you most grateful?
So many things. And when I saw this question, I was like, what is a thing today that I'm the most grateful for? Because I feel like it changes every day. And I feel like there's overriding things of gratitude around family and faith and business. But one of the things that I've been really grateful for this week is that I get to do what I do with the team. And I think sometimes as business owners, and I'm in the office on my own almost all of the time when I'm not out with clients, is that sometimes that isolation and doing it solo can be quite tricky. And so I'm super grateful that I've got an incredible group of people who are out seeing clients, igniting each other's fire about how we can help change people's worlds, giving each other inspiration, coming at it from completely different angles, people from different world experiences and cultures and ages and demographics coming together around something that they love. And yeah, I've really kind of got a renewed enthusiasm and gratefulness for my team over the last even just week.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think we're hardwired to be like that, aren't we?
We are, and it is tricky sometimes because when you're a creative, sometimes you can kind of go. Like I imagine you're the same, Debbie. It's how my brain works. I get a creative idea and I've like lost time. I'm just like so far down the rabbit hole. But when you actually bring people along with you, that's when you can change things and you get that, longevity rather than just like Amy having a bright spark idea that lasts a week and then I fizzle out.
Yeah, there's something else exciting to do then, isn't there?
Yeah, always, always.
I love it. No, I think that's certainly something to be very grateful for. Now, I'm going to get personal just for a little while here. Okay. But you
I'm
can,
ready.
yeah, rein me in if you need to. Look, and this is like, here you go. I'm getting a free session with Amy Revell. Woo!
Gold.
All right. Okay. Now, I started my personal decluttering journey some time ago, but it was sort of reignited, sharpened, if you like, after the death of my mother. So that was a few years ago, 2021. And my husband's mother passed away at the same time. Our dads had already passed away. So on top of everything else, I had my mum's stuff, and not just my mum's stuff, but my mum's house. you know, when you look at all of the things that meant something to her, but mind you, if everything means something, if everything's special, nothing's special. And I must tell you that my mum is of the, was of the generation when she bought meat in the supermarkets on styrofoam trays.
Oh, yeah.
She would wash the trays
Yep.
and put them in the pantry. Right.
I've seen the clients who do that, and I remember growing up in a home that had that as well.
So I'm coming from that. And my mum
Yeah,
said, well, we didn't have enough growing up. And they didn't, you know, they
they
were
didn't.
struggling for food
Yeah,
when she was a kid. And it's just such a different existence now to, oh, I'm struggling to decide what I'll cook for dinner now. You
yeah,
know, then it was go to the butcher and see if you can get some dripping. She used to talk about getting dripping from the butcher so they could eat, you know, and go,
wow.
okay. So we had a lot of stuff. So there was that stuff. So there's this personal thing, and your podcast absolutely supported me. It's amazing. And it reaffirmed to me that what I'm doing in my podcast for music educators, or what I'm trying to do, I'm hoping it's supporting them. That even if they're
That's
people I've never
beautiful.
met,
Yeah.
that hopefully I'm providing some sort of support. So absolutely, you did that for me. So I was chipping away, and I did your 101 series about each
Yeah.
room. Yeah, I was
Yep.
listening to all that. Not that I've started every room, but like I'm getting there.
You've got the resources when it's time.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go back and re-listen. But it's more, apart from the personal, it's also the professional perspective, right?
Mm.
Here I am, a music teacher. Teachers in general, I think, we collect and hoard things. Okay. We don't have big
Yes, you do.
budgets. We, yeah, actually, I should ask you for some past teacher stories, shouldn't I? But we find something, oh, we might need that. Oh, I could use that. I could use it this way. And there's actually good educational backing for this, because the kids learn through doing, and having manipulatives and actually having something physical helps
Yeah.
kids to learn.
Yeah.
So there's reasons for it, but we end up with so much stuff. And then how do we store the stuff? And then how do we find the stuff again when we need it?
Yeah.
So that's where my head is at. Oh, and
Mm.
let's not forget electronic. Oh my goodness, you should see inside my computer. Okay,
Yeah.
where do we start, Amy?
So I think that's really generous of you to share the experience of losing your mum and your mother-in-law, and how that kind of, I liked the word that you used around sharpened. It sharpened your focus, because I think often when we have loved ones that die, and we've then kind of naturally we get a lot of their possessions, we are really confronted with stuff, the value of stuff, the importance of stuff, the unimportance of stuff, the lack of value of things. And it's like all running around in our heads while we're also grieving. And while we're also kind of trying to establish in our minds often, what's the legacy of the person who's passed? And I think, a long time ago, the legacy was the stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when my great grandparents passed away, the legacy was that they passed on their china, or they passed on a piece of furniture. And that was their legacy. Obviously, they had a legacy in character and life experience and all of that. But the legacy of stuff has actually changed, but how we handle it hasn't. And so I can really see that there's lots of people in kind of their second season of life who are like 50s to 70s, whose parents might be passing away, that are going, my parents left me all this stuff. I don't need it. I definitely don't love it. I'm not going to use it, but I feel really guilty about it. And I feel some kind of connection to it, which I can only assume is what you would have felt as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
And
so
that
it's really
guilt,
tricky.
the guilt is so real. You go, I don't
Yeah.
really like this, but I know mum loved it. What am I going to
And then there's the
do?
question of, did she love it? Like, did she love it, or did she keep it because they're that generation where they didn't have a lot of stuff? And so when they had things, they kept it and they looked after it well, and they stored it well, and they used it. But did they love it? It's really tricky. And so I think that's a really important thing to recognize, is that plays a part in then how you see your stuff. because you might then be thinking, oh, one day when it's time for me to move on and I've got to pass all these things to someone, do I expect them to know what's important to me? How do they know? Is it actually just a piece of art and a teapot that I would ever want to pass on to anybody? And how do I make that known? Or do I want to slowly curate my things so that I'm enjoying what I've got, but I'm not keeping them unnecessarily? Does that ring a bell with the kind of process you were going through?
Oh, absolutely. And that's that last phrase you said, that's what I want to do. Slowly curate my things so that I'm living with what I love and it's workable. And there is that whole thing. Am I leaving this to my two sons? I have sons as well. They are 27 and 31. But they're just more likely to just come in and pay someone to put everything in the tip.
100%. They're going to ring a company like ours and go, look, I've got the memories of mum. I've taken the photo albums and I took 2 shirts that I liked and a casserole dish that reminds me of my childhood. And if you were to look back, you go, why did I keep all the other stuff? I thought they would want it, but we don't. Like, that's the reality of it. And I think you then had that really natural shift from, how do I then place value on my own things? What do I need to declutter? How do I live intentionally? And that naturally shifts to your business. And then all of a sudden you think, oh, all my business resources, like what? Because the mindset changes. And I think that's what you identified, is like, I could use this. This could be helpful. But then there's the reality of like, am I using it?
Yes.
So that can be really tricky for teachers and educators. Notorious, Debbie, for keeping resources that could be helpful, or I wouldn't be able to get this again, is a really big challenge for educators.
Yes, it is. Okay. So is there a bit of a strategy to help us to approach this, do you think?
Yeah, I know some of my team have come out of education, so primary school teachers, kindergarten teachers, childcare teachers. And there is, you walk into a storeroom and there's just shelves and shelves and shelves of things, which is fine if you've got the room and you're going to use it. But I think when we're sole practitioners or we're running small clinics or practices or studios, then you kind of got to think about what real estate you have. And you can't be the master of all things. So you might have a teaching style or a music style or preference on what instruments you teach. And so that naturally kind of directs and curates the quantity of things that you keep. And I think for teachers, it's not about the could this be helpful? Could a student use this? Could I use this in the future? Could another teacher use this? But have I used it? Like, has it been used in the last 12 months? Because you only have a certain amount of space, don't you? Like, you probably don't have never-ending space to keep all your resources. You've got limited space. So how do you curate it so that it's like perfect for the way that you teach and what you want to specialize in?
And yes, that's the tricky part, isn't it? I think.
Do you find for yourself that there's certain areas of music teaching and your world that you're like, oh, I can easily get rid of that because that's not my area?
I'm getting better, and this is a purely personal thing, but I do feel generally it will be shared. I think we are getting better at not keeping the paper stuff and going, now that was a good worksheet, for example, a music worksheet. That's quite a good worksheet. Actually, I wouldn't use it because it looks old and dated. I like the concept. Maybe I might just scan it, put it in the ideas folder, which you don't want to know how big my ideas folder is.
Is the ideas folder where old things go to die?
Yes. Yes, I should rename it. Old
That's
things
great.
are in here dying. But where the concept of the worksheet is good, and maybe I will redo it. And I guess because I also run Crescendo, so I work full-time in a primary school as the music teacher, and I run Crescendo and I produce resources for music teachers. So I am actually also looking for new ideas from that perspective. So once in a blue moon, I open the ideas folder, but I am getting better at not keeping the bits of paper.
Yeah.
And well, okay, case in point, I'm very excited. I've reached a milestone in my office decluttering. I have emptied 2 4-drawer filing cabinets.
That's amazing.
I
That is a
was
very big milestone.
It's taken me like literally years. I have a 3-drawer and a 1-drawer left
That's incredible,
to
Debbie.
still go through,
Yeah,
but and I also bought an amazing scanner that goes chuk, chuk, chuk.
great.
And
Can I ask you a question about that?
yes,
When you were going through and getting rid of the stuff out of these 8 drawers, did
yes.
you have a framework that you asked yourself? Like, was it, can I scan it? Has this been updated? Like, because I think for music educators, often if we just say, go in and declutter, there's like, well, I don't know how to make my decisions because I need some kind of a framework. Did you find that you naturally created a framework for yourself that helped the process become quicker?
Yes, I had not thought about it in that light, but yeah, I did. Certainly the first thing was, will I ever need or refer to this again? Possibly.
Yep.
And then it was a scan.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, as someone who's lectured and presented for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, I think some of the stuff that I did then, and I don't have electronically, I think I lost everything on a computer at some point. And I thought that might be good to have those methodology notes or whatever. That's some of that stuff is still valid. So I thought I will scan that, and I put it in the, 2007 folder, what I did then, because some of that content can be reused, because I believe good teaching and good pedagogy is just good teaching and good pedagogy. You may have to change the repertoire. You might have to change the approach slightly. But so, yes, it was, I will scan. I will never use this again. That's rubbish. And I had a big thing for recycling. And then I did have another pile that was for a revisit.
Right.
I just couldn't quite make up my mind. And I basically got through all 8 drawers doing that, and there's really not much left in the can't make up my mind. A little bit,
That's
but not
pretty
much.
incredible. And I think that's great for teachers to go, it's okay to have stuff that I'm going to scan. It's okay to let stuff go. And often, like how technology has developed and resources has developed, it's much more economical and a better use of your time as a teacher to hook into someone who has great resources, who aligns with how you teach, and to pay them to subscribe to something rather than you having to be the holder of all knowledge.
Yes.
And I love that about the way that the world runs, is that I don't have to be the only person who does decluttering. I don't have to own that space, and I don't.
Yep.
Because there are other amazing people out there that do decluttering, and I will go to them for different things that I need. And people can come to you for things, and they can go somewhere else for things. They don't have to keep every single thing themselves.
Yes. And I think that's a big shift today, isn't it? And
Totally.
I recall in my early 20s, I recall sitting with cardboard and a ruler and making rhythm flashcards.
Oh, that's
drawing
gorgeous.
tars and titis and things and cutting them out.
Yeah.
Like, you would never do that now.
No. And even students learn differently. Like, I remember when I did piano right through to grade 8, and everything was, I had binders and binders and binders of printed out music, and I'd go to the music store with all my pocket money, and I'd buy a sheet of music and a song of music. My son plays guitar and piano. He's never owned a piece of sheet music in his life. He just has his phone there. And so, even the way that students learn has changed so much. You're not having to have 15 copies of something to hand it out to everyone necessarily. Sometimes you might.
Sometimes you
but
have
there's
to.
all this technology as well, which changes what you need to keep and how you teach.
Yes, smart boards and big TVs have changed everything.
Totally,
I don't teach,
particularly in a school.
I don't teach a lesson at school without my big TV. And we start with a bit of a fun YouTube clip, and we have a little chat about what we saw, and away we go, or we clap rhythms from the screen instead of having a sheet that we're reading.
All those music books that in primary school everyone got, I think it was the whole of Australia, we all had the same music books, and you'd have it on your lap. And I see them now in clients' homes, and it just is so nostalgic.
Yes, the sing books.
The sing books, that was them.
Oh, believe me, we
they
know
were
about
great.
them. It was a bit sad when they stopped, actually, but there are quite a few of us, and I've still got some in my school cupboard,
Yeah.
Most of my colleagues are now just sort of getting rid of them and just keeping one copy.
Yeah, that's
um,
right.
which I guess I'll have to bite the bullet at school and do that.
One day.
But it's so hard when there's this, because there's something too nice about kids having the music in their hands. So you've got
Mm,
to also, we
yeah,
have a big choir program and the kids have the original choral music in their
great.
hands to sing.
Yeah.
So you've got to provide that, the same way that we've got to teach them to be literate, not just plug something into a program.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that whole balance. But yes, okay. So you come up. So right, I'll bring myself back. So when you're going through something, you ask yourself, now what was the question? Would I use it? No, will I
Have you
use it?
used it?
Have I used it? Could
So
you
that
ask
gives you
yourself,
a good
will I
estimate.
use it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it would be, do I have a plan to use it? Because will I use it could be, of course I would, Debbie.
Yes,
But
that's
will
what.
I use it? And it's the same for, like, if you go to your wardrobe and I look at a jacket, I'm like, will I wear that? Would I wear that or something? You can ask these questions. You're like, oh, totally. I
So
could
would.
wear that. Yeah. But do I have a plan on wearing it? Is there a dress that I would wear it to? Do I have events that I go to? Okay, no, I have no foreseeable plan of using it. So that's a little bit different. It's a nuance, but it can help to kind of narrow the decision making. So have I used it and do I have a plan to use it?
Do
Could
I
be
have a
some really
plan?
helpful questions.
I like that. And
And
in our case, you could actually put it in physically in your lesson plan.
exactly, because when you find something that you're like, I don't have a plan to use it, why not? This is an incredible resource. And so then all of a sudden you're like, okay, you're pushed into action and you're like, great, I'm going to integrate this into term 3, or I'm going to, this student in particular is struggling in that. And so it does give you that creativity to actually use the things,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of the point. Like, the point of
That's what you got
decluttering
it for.
is not just to declutter. Like, that is a waste of time. The point of decluttering is so you know what you have, you can use what you have, and you become a better educator and teacher.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So I'm going to have to write these questions down. No, I'll write them down later. But I like that. Yes. So have I used it? And do I
Do
have
I
a
have a
plan
plan?
to use it?
Yeah.
And ask yourself honestly, if you really aren't going to, then, okay, that's the next problem. What
Mm-hmm.
do you do with it? Could it be useful for someone else? Do
So
I put it
yes,
in the
that's
bin?
that's
Do I
tricky.
donate it? I'll tell you, okay, here's another big thing, and it's part
Yep.
of being part of this generation. And I'm involved in professional music associations too. And people have contacted me and said, I'm retiring. Here's my professional library. I'm sure if you can't use it, you'll know someone who wants it. Now, it's horrible, but people don't want them.
No, they absolutely don't. No,
They
and
don't.
it's
It's
a way of people kind of shrugging the responsibility of doing the decluttering themselves. I've seen school teachers do it. I've seen university lecturers do it. I've seen engineers and architects do it, where they're like, here's all my stuff. I'm sure you'll use it. And if you said to them, have you used it all in the last 10 years? Oh, no, no, no. But it's stuff you can't get anymore. There might be a reason that you can't get it anymore. One of the things, so I did a little bit of decluttering work in a primary school. It would have been 5 years ago. So they were moving, the whole school was being knocked down. So we did a huge declutter through the school. They built the new building and then we moved everything into the new building. So huge, huge process. Some of the teachers had been there over 20 years. And so their classrooms, they had all those resources you're talking about, Debbie, where they were like, oh, but the young teachers might use it. So what we did is, because the young teachers were looking at me with these big wide eyes going, help, is we set up the staff room table one day and said, bring in the resources. People are going to come in and go through it, but it's your responsibility at the end of the week to get rid of what wasn't taken. And so at that point, if they're like, oh, now I really can't get rid of this, they've got to do something about it. Not the poor young teacher who's now been handed filing boxes full of handouts and things and strategies that have long been updated, and things have had research and development, and so we don't use that anymore for very good reason. But I think it's challenging when people push that decision making onto someone who's newer, because you feel like at the time you're giving a gift,
yes.
but you're kind of just passing on responsibility of the curation.
That's That is very interesting. I had not
Mm,
considered it that way, but yes, but you are so right. And
yeah,
there's a lot of emotion attached too, because some
of
of
course.
these things being passed on have meant a lot to this
Yeah,
person
yeah.
that's leaving their loved profession, and they've
Mm-hmm.
helped me get through it. And here, so some of it, I'm sure, is very well meaning, but
Yeah.
it does have that edge of good. Now I don't have to deal with it.
Totally.
Oh,
So you
oh,
could, if someone offers that to you, it's not a matter of saying, oh, you're just trying to fob off responsibility.
yeah.
But you could say, could I come over for a cup of tea? I'd love to have a look through it and see if there's a couple of things that I might be able to take. So you're kind of setting that expectation of I'm not coming to take all your stuff, but having a cup of tea, there's relationship. And there might be, you might look through and there might be something they pull out and say, hey, this is what this is for, and this is how I use it. You're like, oh my goodness, that's amazing, which is much better than being given a whole box. You're not going to be able to go through that whole box. You're probably going to put it aside, maybe use one or two things, and then feel guilty when you have to get rid of it. But it's
And
not your problem to
I
start off with.
think, I think, I think it actually has implications for us too, because if you saw my bookshelves, I
Mm,
have gone through them once, with the help of my great friend Deb, who I do a lot of work with. Deb. Hello, Deb. She gets mentioned every episode. Um, but she helped me and she would sit there and go, seriously, Debbie, are you ever going to open that? And even things
yeah.
I'd bought brand new that I
Mm-hmm.
know had good stuff in it, but I know I won't get to use it.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we were relatively mercenary because no, I think we just took it to we had a special workshop where we had a secondhand book
Great
store.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then anything, we ended up saying, take what you like and make a donation.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else went to Lifeline.
Oh, that's brilliant. I
Mm.
think that's a really lovely community way of doing it,
Yeah.
where
It was
then there
nice.
you can share what's going on. But I love that you and Deb were ruthless and really intentional, because
Oh,
that
Deb was ruthless.
intentionality,
Deb.
that's what a good friend is, Debbie, isn't it? When you're like, I'm gonna trust you, Deb.
Yep. You're right. Intentionality. Yes. I love that. Okay.
Mm,
Electronic files.
yeah.
Do you have any hints for organizing? And it's easy that for them to become a mess because
Mhm.
it's all contained in this little box over here, you know?
Well, that's right. And we're always in a rush when we're saving electronic files.
Mm.
It's often that we will just save as and then just hit enter. So it might be a photo file, it might be a WhatsApp file, it might be a PDF file, and we just hit save as because we're in a rush
Mm.
and we think, well, at least it's in there. There's that sense of like, as long as it's in the digital space, I'll be able to find it again. But even like I'm super organized with my digital files, like it's really, really organized, and I still can struggle to find things if they're not named right. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes when you've got like this big overwhelming, you might have hard drives, or you might have, just a big Google Drive or a Dropbox, and you're like, it's just shambles in there. Sometimes you can start by creating some really basic folders and using categories. So you might have professional development, you might have AMEB students, you might have violin pieces, you might have rhythm, like whatever the kind of categories in your mind. So the category police are never going to turn up and go through your categories and go, oh, that's not right. So it's got to work with your brain. So if your brain needs to have it based on students or based on instruments or based on genres, it doesn't matter as long as you know how to use it. And then get into the habit of saving things into those folders. And it might be that you have like just 5 folders, or it might be that you want 25 folders so you can really specifically find things. And I would put a line in the sand, create your folders and start using them. And then when you get 10 minutes, go and see if you can find some files that are in your big crazy mess and put them where they belong, or get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you try and get all of it sorted first before you start using it, it's too overwhelming. I've yet found anyone that can successfully do it that way. They always say, I started
Yeah.
and then I lost all hope in my life because these categories and folders and files were just too overwhelming.
Mm.
So it's almost like, yep, as of today, I'm going to create some categories. I'm going to use that. What I find really helpful for teachers and educators is the same categories that you use in your digital storage. So your Google Drive or your Dropbox or however you use it, have the same ones in your email account. And so if an email comes in that it's on that, you can just put it in there. So you've got exactly the same categories so you can find things more easily. Sometimes we're like, did I get an email about that? Or did I save it? Like, where would I find it? But if your categories are clear, you can just search. If you have to search in 2 places, do that. Or you can save a file, obviously, from your email and put it into the digital storage. But either, kind of the purpose of digital storage is that files are easy to find and simple to file. So when you want to find it, it's like, it's so easy. I can just find that file, whether you search, whether you go through and you've got it named really well, or when you've got a file and you're like, oh, where am I going to keep that? It's so simple. I just know where to put it. Because it's the same as if you were putting away your financial paperwork or putting away your socks and your shoes. Simple and easy makes it maintainable. As soon as you create some complex system, nobody's keeping up with the complex. I literally do this for my job, Debbie, and I'm not going to keep up with the complex system.
Yes. No, I love that. And I think my school files are much more organized than my home and crescendo ones. And yeah, I have come to the painfully to the conclusion that there's still too many, but less than I used to have. You know, I have an events folder now instead of, I think it was something like 40 folders with, you know, there's lots of music events and I'm at, you know, whether it's the year 6 graduation and the whatever, and they may be subfolders, but at least if it goes into events, it's in the
you're
right
going to be able to find
place.
it.
So
Yeah, I totally agree.
I had never thought quite like that email idea. Like I have email categories, folders.
Yep.
But I've never thought to see if they align with the other one. That makes a lot of sense.
It just makes it easy. Like we want to kind of remove the expectation of you should have it based on, as soon as people start doing folders based on time or years, I don't know how anyone remembers. I don't even know how old I am, let alone. So if you can have it really clear, like if it says, you know, grade 6 graduation, and then each of those ones might have the year that they graduated, or you've got the Peter Pan thing, like keep it really simple, because that's how your brain's going to go and look for things. And then you're much more likely, the files that you scanned when you were going through your four-drawer system, you're actually more likely to use them because you've put them in an easily accessible way.
Yes. And do you think generally an archive within, like I tend to have an archive because I used to try and do everything in years within and it got too complex. So if we take grade 6 graduation, not that I like that word because it's really just compulsory promotion to the next level of schooling.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. But anyway, graduation. So then you go open graduation and you will only see what's relevant. Then there's a subfolder that says archive.
Yep.
So when I finish with this year, it goes in there because I certainly school-wise need to keep that because I may use that same video or I might refer to the letter that went home to the parents, you know, and
so
just
the only trick that I would do that changes it, instead of just saying archive, I would have grade 6 graduation archive, because when you go to search, if you're using the search function in your email or in your Google Drive, having just archive, you're going to possibly have 30 different folders called archive.
More than 30.
Yeah. But if you actually take the time to label what the archive is, and even though it might seem like, oh, it's a bit of extra typing at the time, it's then really, really clear for you what is kept in there.
Oh, that's a great hint. Okay, I'm going to do that
top
for
tip.
sure. Oh, I love that. Oh, goodness, there's so many things. I love it. How, when you work with people, you know, asking for a friend.
Yeah, of course.
You work Zoom sometimes too, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Is
do virtual sessions all over the world.
Wow.
Some parts of the world, it's like my late night and your early morning because we're trying to manage time zones. But yeah, it's great. It's a great way of having some ideas and fresh eyes on things, as well as kind of creating a step-by-step, like this is what the next steps are, and accountability and body doubling when you're not in a location that a professional organizer can get to you quickly.
Oh, so that's great. So you work with people in person as well as, and you have other people that work for you too?
Yeah, so we're a team of 11. And so we service pretty much the whole of Victoria. So down Gippsland, all the way up to Seymour, out to Werribee and everywhere in between. And yeah, physically out every day doing sessions with clients.
And what's better, the physical sessions or your podcast?
Oh, they're totally, so if you're wanting to DIY it, go the podcast, because you'll get the tips and tricks. And if you've got the motivation, and you've got the time and the space, and you've got, you know, the house clear, you've got the energy, go for it. That's literally why I do the podcast. It's for the people who want to DIY. And then there's lots of people who say, I'm short on time, I'm short on energy, I don't have the ideas, or I'm neurodiverse, I'm ADHD, I need someone there because I'm going to go off to all the different spaces. Or we work with a lot of people with physical disabilities. And so actually then having someone in person not only means you're doubling your time, like you're more like 3 times or 4 times in your time, because, you know, whenever you've got an expert coming in, you're not kind of making mistakes along the way quite as much. So both serve a really different purpose. But I often say to people, start with the podcast. See if you can do it. See if you can kind of get some of the thinking and the mindset and the strategies. And then you might say, look, I just need it done in a weekend. And so you might have a team come in, or say, look, every Monday for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to take off work because I really want to get this under control. And I know that I have tried to do it on my own. And if I don't have someone there with me, it's likely that I'm just going to end up in the same messy position at the end.
Yeah, I could see that. But which one do you prefer doing?
Oh, both. For completely different reasons, though. Like the podcast, I love that it's bite-sized, that it's like specific topic that you can kind of go back and go, that particular idea can change this. And, you know, it's really pick and choose your own adventure. And the satisfaction of doing a session with a client in their home rivals nothing, because you see this incredible transformation in 3 or 4 hours. And you can see, like, you walk in and they're heavy and they're, you know, they're overwhelmed, and you walk out and they're practically dancing in their lounge room because they're like, look at all this space I have.
Yeah.
So they both bring completely different types of joy. The quicker transformation and the more overarching change is definitely in a client session, but, you know, not always accessible to people. People may not have the time or the money or the inclination to have someone else in. And then they might go, yeah, I'm just going to go with the podcast. I'm going to do one of Amy's courses so that it's like she's there coaching me. Like there's lots of different ways to kind of tackle your own decluttering job.
So tell us about courses, and you've got a book.
I do. I've got a book called Simply Organized. So I wrote that in 2016. It's been a while ago. I think it was 2015. So it's onto its 2nd edition. It sold like 5,000 copies. So independently published. You can just buy that on my website. So that was really about providing a handbook for people. So it goes through areas like digital, toys, clothes, kitchen. And then it also talks around things like the fear of what if I let something go, or what if I need it? What if I change my mind, but it's worth a lot of money? And then it talks around storage, like how do you actually organize a space, not just declutter it? So that's a really practical kind of overarching handbook. So if someone's like, I don't even know where to start and I kind of want to do it all, it's a really great way to kind of get that resource in. Or you can listen to the audiobook on Audible as well.
Oh, it's on Audible. Oh, good.
It
All right.
is.
Well, we will put all of those links in the show
Awesome.
notes so people can do that. I like to ask about nuggets of fabulous. Now, you've already given
I
us
like that.
so many. Well, you know, that's the problem when you do podcasting and it becomes long term. You go, I started this, now I've got to keep going. But luckily,
It's a pretty good thing to keep going with.
but I quite like it. And people come up with some really different things that I wouldn't expect. Like when I first thought of it, I thought, oh, they'll say this is my favorite song and this is a great book, or, you know, but I've had all sorts of things. So I'm interested to hear what Amy's nuggets of fabulous are.
I think for your audience, the thing to remember is that clutter stifles creativity. And so whether it's you're thinking literally of your music teaching space, and if
Mm.
you look around the space and think, oh yeah, I do have a box of paperwork there, and I do have music stands that are kind of half broken and I haven't used in a long time, and I do have all these bits and pieces and a chalkboard that I haven't used and folders, that actually stifles the creativity of your students. But as a teacher, it also stifles your creativity. And so I think if you keep in mind like that, the purpose of the decluttering is about embracing creativity and innovation and having that for yourself and then being able to pass that on, that makes the decluttering worth it. So I think the nugget of fabulous, is that what it was called?
Yes.
Is that clutter stifles creativity. And so what can we do to reduce that clutter visually? So in a space, in a classroom, I know when my kids were little, they'd always say like the classrooms are so like there's so many things hanging off the walls, every space is covered. They would struggle to concentrate on their maths like sums. And so you will have kids that you teach that are easily distracted. And so is there a way that you can remove some of those distractions? And sometimes is the teaching methods too cluttered? Are we trying to put so much into our students that we're not allowing them to learn fully something and master it? So whether it's like visually or in the space you're using or how you teach, you want to reduce that clutter because it increases productivity and creativity. And that's ultimately what we want to experience. Like it's no fun being a music teacher if it's all just the same thing over and over and over again, because that's not creative and that's not embracing the creative side of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also need to use the really logical and mathematical side of our brain in music. I often say that the thing I loved about music that started me off was that I loved maths, and so music made sense. So I understood the mechanics of music way before I understood the creativity of it. And you don't want that stifled just because you've got clutter in your world.
I love that. And what occurred to me when you were saying that, from my perspective, is that it stifles my creativity as an engaging educator if in my room there is a pile of papers on my desk to be filed or to be sorted or to be marked or whatever. I think one of the things we haven't really talked about, we've touched on, but not talked about, the overwhelm that you can feel emotionally when you're living in what you consider to be a cluttered environment. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be hoarders to,
Totally.
I know I'm actually, if you looked at where I lived mostly, you would just go, oh, it's actually not really cluttered at all. But in certain places it is. And the overwhelm and the emotional, I don't know what the word I want is. It's not just overwhelm. It's a burden.
It is. If you picture it, Debbie, every pile, every item out of place is saying something to you in a really loud voice. File me, mark me, put me away, decide what to do with me, pass me on to that person. Don't forget to take me back to the shops. Like all of the clutter is taking up our mental load.
Yes.
And so rather than you thinking, oh, I finished dinner, I might go into the office, I might play some music. Like so many music teachers lose the joy of just playing for fun.
Yeah, I don't play music or listen to music ever.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And that doesn't mean you have to. There's not some rule that to be a
No,
great
but
music teacher
it
you
might
have
be
to, but
nice sometimes.
yeah, it might be that you've actually kind of cluttered it out. And so I think that mental load that you're talking about, and there's all these you shoulds. You should teach this, you should tidy up the room, you should mark those, you should reach out to that person. But when they're all like in your face, it can be really overwhelming. And it's not so much that you don't know what to do with the things, it's that you still have to do all the things.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
And
I
so they're
think,
there and
yeah, and
wanting your
they
attention.
stifle creativity too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that, the noise they make. I like that.
They're just yelling, squawking. They're not yelling, they're squawking at us.
They're the cockatoos outside my window. Yep. Yeah, sometimes we get 40 of them out there. Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Oh, it is lovely. I live in a very lovely place with lots of birds.
That's
And
lovely.
a resident carpet python at the moment too.
They're not so lovely. No, no, I'm out. I can
I've
cope with
learned.
mice in a client's house, but a carpet python, no, I'm out.
Well, he tends to keep away from us. He's not in the house. It's okay.
No, but you can probably hear the birds every time he moves. They all just go
Yes,
berserk, don't
they
they?
do. They go
Yeah,
berserk.
they let you know.
They do. They do. Now, I would ask about how people can connect with you, but what I might do is just get you to send me the big list.
Mhm.
But what would be your preferred, apart from listening to your podcast, you've got a
Yeah,
Facebook group?
yeah. I've got a Facebook group of about 120 odd thousand people.
I
The
said,
easiest way to find me is just put in Google the art of decluttering, and you'll see the podcast and courses. You'll see all the options. There's a podcast episode on teachers, just how to manage resources. So that might be one that it might be helpful
I
to
haven't
people.
listened to that one. I haven't seen that one.
That one's quite a few years old, but
Oh, I
yeah.
mustn't have scrolled back enough.
Yeah. It's quite close to the start because we had so many clients who were teachers and we're just dealing with resources. So that might be helpful. But you can find me anywhere. You just search YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google, wherever you go, there I am.
Oh, it is wonderful. I'm just delighted to have been able to speak to you and get apart from a little free personal session.
Oh, it's been lovely.
But I really think that my listeners will have appreciated your
Mm,
wisdom. Um,
yeah,
I'm sure somebody said to me once, you spend the first 50 years of your life accumulating and then the next 50 trying to get rid of it.
100%. And the earlier you can make that transition. So for me, it was about 30. And I was super organized, but I kept everything. Like I kept everything. And then
Really?
once I realized that, I can get rid of it, like I could find everything. It was simple, it was easy, it was all labeled, it was lovely. But I kept all the kids' toys and I kept, all my music books. And then I went, I'm not needing them or using them. I don't even love them. And so I really went down the decluttering line and went, oh my goodness, the freedom that this brings where I'm not overwhelmed by stuff is such a gift. And I'm glad I found it at when I was 30 and not now when I'm 44 or not in 15 years when I'm 60. Like just it makes a really big difference.
Yes, I wish I had started on this journey earlier. And I basically have a 10 minutes a day thing is what I do. It's the
Oh,
only
great.
way. Yeah. So
Yep.
I chip away.
Yeah,
If the
that's
10
good.
minutes turns into 15 or 20,
Oh,
fabulous. I
roll with
won't
it.
stop myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the only way I've been able to do it.
Yeah.
Because teachers' lives are generally very busy.
Yeah.
Uh,
And seasonal. So, you can't always commit a big amount of time.
so that's what I do. So to
Mm.
finish, I would like to give you a chance to get on your soapbox to just tell the world. I mean, mind you, I've had I don't know, 23,500 downloads,
That's
unlike your
great.
however many, because I looked it up just before I got on this call. I thought,
That's a great number because that's people whose lives you're changing.
hopefully I'm supporting them in their journey to
Exactly.
be
Exactly.
excited, because I do believe music education is needed by every child. It's part of their
Yeah.
overall social, emotional, and cognitive
Huge.
development.
Yeah. We
They all
sent our
need.
kids to a high school that is known for its music program where the year 7 orchestra is 100 pieces.
Oh,
Like, oh, I love it.
oh, that is so good to hear.
It is
That's probably
amazing.
that's
Yeah.
probably why you said yes to my podcast. Hey, oh, it's been so nice talking to you. So I'm going to let you get on your soapbox, and then I will bid you farewell, Amy.
Lovely. So I think my soapbox moment is to say never organize what you can declutter. I think it's tempting to be all inspired after you've heard Debbie and I talk. And the first thing you do is go to Kmart or Officeworks.
Get
And I
boxes.
just want to be like, slow down, girlfriend. Rein it in. Actually focus on getting rid of things first. Because if you're spending time organizing that which you could have decluttered, it's wasted time. I think of it like folding your dirty laundry or filing your junk mail. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. So declutter first, organize second. Declutter first, organize second. That's my soapbox.
I think with those incredibly wise words, I will bid farewell to Amy. This was so much fun, and I am going to go and search that episode on teachers.
Thank you for having me, Debbie. I've had a lovely time.
Bye. As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. I asked my dog what 2 minus 2 was. He said nothing. He's a very clever puppy. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education podcast. For more information about all things Crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe.